Hotel. Welcome to Journey into Self. I'm your host, Sarah. Today, our topic is going to be the importance of awareness and introspection. We spent a lot of time last year, 2025, going into a deep analysis of Donald Trump. But since we're beginning the year, I wanted to basically go into the core reason of this show, Journey into Self, and to really explore what that really means, what journey into self means, what is the purpose and meaning of our life. Why are we here? What are we here to do? We know that in the ancient learning centers, the temples in Kemet, the temples throughout the world, that the two words were inscribed: know thyself. That is a call for self-inquiry for us. And that is really the purpose of our life is to know who we truly are. Many have talked about the question. Many philosophers have brought up the question, "Who am I?" Which is closely related to the know thyself um, posture. And as we go through our life, we are given the opportunity to engage in that self inquiry. Why am I here? What am I here to do? Why do I have these experiences? Why do people into my life? Things to recently. So we should be asking the question of ourselves. And when we get to ask that question, it brings to mind the biblical aspect you got fine. When we begin the process of self-inquiry, asking questions, we're putting energy into the use to bring for answers. And answers come from within ourselves. And that will make sense when we truly understand who we are. So to go back, it's important for us to be able to change our perspective on life, on creation, on who we are, how we got here, where we come from, what we're made of. Often the words are spoken that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, but it's put out there as kind of a bit of a cliche. But not a lot of discussion goes into what that actually means. What does it mean to be a spiritual being having a human experience? That's something to ponder, that to ask a question about. And in order to really go into that, it requires that we change our perspective on things, because when we come into the physical world, into the physical realm, the tendency is for us to identify with our physical self, to identify with the physical world, to identify with those things that we can see and touch. But what were we before we got here? Before we were placed into these physical temples in which we reside? Did we not exist before then? So when we say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, it compels us, or should compel us, to realize that we have been looking at things backwards. So it requires a change in perspective. And it compels us to come to the realization that if we came from spirit, then the spirit realm takes precedent over the physical. So it requires a shift in awareness. Part of the issue that we have when we come into the physical world is that as we come into the experience with the physical world, we identify with it, but we also lose our connection, our conscious connection, our alignment with our divinity, with our spiritual self. We basically forget who we are. And so the process of life, the journey that we're on, is to remember who we are, to come back into knowing of ourselves. So when we go into all the spiritual teachings, spiritual philosophies, religions before they became corrupted, but even as they are in their current form, the discerning mind can see through the the layers of distraction, and to be able to discern what the truth of the message is and the purpose of the message is. We can see through the junk. And we realize that the purpose of all of those are the same, is to to help us to transcend our identification with our body, with our mind, with our senses, come into a realignment or with our divinity. The process for us, when I go back to title this talk, the importance of awareness, awareness, introspection, is one, be mindfully aware of who we are, to be mindfully aware that we're here, and to begin the process of observing ourselves, to engage in self-inquiry. Why do I do what I do? Where does that come from? Why do I feel what I feel? Where does that come from? To watch our mind and to notice how our emotions are tied to our mind, how our actions are tied to what we're thinking, that what we speak on is tied to what we're thinking. But none of those things are us, but we identify with that. But that's not who we are. That's our false self. That's the ego self. But because we haven't been taught any better, we've gone through our lives allowing our lower self, our ego self, to be the captain of our lives, to control our minds, to control our emotions, to control our actions, which all culminates in controlling our reality. And so when we stop to look at what is going on around us, what the situation that we're in that particular moment, how did we get there? And to realize that we took an active role in creating it, but that we did so unconsciously, because we create with the vibration of our thoughts. We create with the vibration of our words. We create with the vibration of our emotions. And we're replicating the creation process that was initiated by the divine in bringing the world into existence. So we are spirit. We are microcosms of the divine. We have all the same attributes and potentialities. So, in the same way, that the universe was brought into existence, we create our own mini universe by the vibrations that we create with our thoughts, with our speech, with our emotions, with our focus. Whatever thoughts that we hold on to with intensity, we amplify and help to bring it. We're creating it. We're bringing it in the past. That brings to mind a a passage from one of my favorite songs, a funkadelic song, "Good Thoughts, Bad Thoughts." Be careful of the thought seeds we plant in the garden of our mind, for seeds go after their kind. And so when we become aware that we are creating, and let me go back again to emphasize that we are always creating because we are always thinking, we are always speaking, we are always in some state of emotion, which amplifies the vibrations of our thoughts and our words. So we're either creating consciously or we're creating unconsciously, but we're always creating. So that underscores the importance of maintaining awareness because we want to be conscious about that which we're creating. And then we want to engage in introspection. Once we've become aware of the fact that we're thinking constantly, and we begin to assert control of our thoughts, just as when we go into the virtues of Ma'at in the Kemetic system. I control my thoughts. I control my actions. Those are important. And so it's important for us to reflect upon those things. Are we in control? Have we been in control of our thoughts and our actions? And then it's important for us to engage in our spiritual practices to develop the discipline. The purpose of the spiritual practices is to help us to change our perspective, to change our programming, to transcend our identification with our physical self, to create new habits, to transcend old habits that didn't serve us, to help us to master our mind, to help us to master our body, to help us to master our senses. And that's why we do things such as meditation. Meditation isn't just about going into silence. It's the process of how we going into silence that helps us to develop the self-control, the ability to be in control of our thoughts. And when we're in control of our thoughts, we're in control of our actions, we're in control of our emotions, we're in control of that which we speak. But it's not easy to just go into science. That's why I mentioned it's the process through which we go into silence. And so when we go into meditation, it requires awareness. Because we have to be aware that we're constantly thinking. And so we start with that awareness, and then we begin the process of withdrawing our energy from our thoughts to pull away from our identification with our thoughts, with our mind, to disassociate ourselves from our mind, to even disassociate ourselves from our body. That's the purpose of meditation, to withdraw our consciousness from our identification with our mind and our body. So we engage in meditation so that we may detach from our thoughts. We engage in the yogic exercises in order to make us more flexible so that we can sit comfortably in meditation, and in order to facilitate the upward flow of energy. Because if we're too tight, then we we create blockages. Energy is more difficult for it to flow through. And so we want to be able to loosen the spine so that the energy can move from the lower energy centers up our spine to the higher energy centers, which you may know as chakras. Now, as I was meditating on the topic for tonight, what also came into my awareness is that we will henceforth face an increasing challenge, but the challenge is somewhat paradoxical in that the primary challenge will be in making the choice. And once we make the choice, things will flow a little bit easier. But it's really about making the choice in total sincerity. So what I'm saying is, henceforth we will be forced to choose. We will not be able to stay on the fence. We will not be able to travel the middle path, so to speak. We will have to choose which side we're on. So if we decide that we are into spirituality, we will be compelled to go deeper into it. We won't be allowed to just be playing the game of spirituality if we really want to advance. But if we don't choose to go deeper into it, we'll be pulled in the other direction. So we'll either go on our ascension path and be pulled in that direction, or we will allow ourselves to get pulled down into ego. It'll be difficult for one to stay on the fence, because we're going to be pulled off of it in one direction or the other. So we'll have to decide if we really want to go deep into whatever it is that we're into. So we will see increased polarity in the world. We're seeing increased polarity in the world on all fronts, whether it be on the spiritual front, whatever spiritual path people are on, they will be compelled to get deeper into it. If they're not on the spiritual path, whatever it is that they're into, they'll get more into that. Uh, if people are really into pizza and food, they'll be more into that. Uh, whatever people are into, they will be drawn towards. So we will have to be vigilant about what it is that we choose to do. I felt that, within myself. Uh, I've been compelled to, go deeper into my own spiritual practice. And we'll see that on the political spectrum. We're seeing that on the political spectrum. So whatever political philosophy people have, they will be deeper into it. Um, whatever dogmas they may have, they'll be deeper into that. If people are into seeking information, seeking truth, they will be compelled to be more into that. So the paradox is that the difficulty will be in making the choice. But once the choice is made, we will find it to be much easier, because the universe will support us in making the choice, because the choice is a difficult one. And there will, of course, be opposition. There's always constant opposition. We will have opposition from within ourselves, because when we embark on the spiritual path, we will have in effect declared war with our lower self, and the lower self is has no intention of just acquiescing and giving up the fight. It will fight. We will face external opposition, because those who control the world's political systems and resources are controlled by ego, controlled by darkness. So there will be are threatened by the general ascension and pull towards the light that humanity is experiencing. So they will act and are acting out of desperation. I was watching earlier today a video by uh, the great researcher Whitney Webb, and she was talking about the surveillance state, which came into full manifestation, or began to become into full manifestation in the wake of the events of 9/11, which of course were uh, orchestrated. And in the wake of the events of 9/11, the opportunity was taken to begin the creation of the surveillance state with the uh, DARPA program, or part of a Department of Defense initiative, which brought forth the Total Information Awareness Program, led by John Poindexter during I believe it was the Reagan administration when that first came out, and then uh, followed by the Bush administration. Actually, it wasn't the Bush administration. But the point of that is the need for creating the circumstances for the creation of a security and surveillance state was a response to their fear of losing control, a response to their fear of their secrets coming to light, knowing that we are on the cusp of the information age, that those things that have been hidden will come to light, and that is active on all fronts. That which is hidden will come to light. Uh, So those secrets that the elite, so-called, held in their secret societies have been are coming to light, and so the what I want to say is also the knowledge that the ancestors had, which they study, demonstrates that there are recurring cycles of time, and that we are in the ascendant part of the cycle, moving from the darkness into the light. So, with their awareness of that, they feel the fear and desperation that their time is running out. And so that is what compelled the actions that resulted in 9/11, the planning for that, and the outcome, the desired outcome of developing the security and surveillance state. Now, Whitney Webb pointed out that the Total Information Awareness Program was so-called disbanded, um, which it wasn't. It was just rebranded and privatized, which, and I was actually trying to avoid this, but um, brings us back to the to Trump, in that one of his primary backers and the mentor of his vice president and one of his connections and financiers was Peter Thiel, who created the company Palantir, which is taken private the work of the DARPA and the Total Information Awareness apparatus. So again, um, there's no draining of the swamp, but I digress. The point of it is that, actually, that's not really a digression. Awareness will be important for us from a self observation standpoint, but it's also important for us to be aware of what's going on around us, because it's not for us to just be living as if we are islands. We all have a part to play in the grand drama, and it's not for us to ignore it. I've made the point before on numerous occasions that spirituality is not an escape. I apologize. We just had a little technical difficulty working with a new computer, so we're still working some of those things out. But I was pointing out that not only will it be important for us to maintain awareness and introspection in regards to ourselves, the internal introspection and awareness. But it's also will be necessary for us to be aware of what's going on around us and to be involved in what's going on around us. And what I was saying before we had the technical difficulty was that I made the point before that we don't engage in spirituality to escape from life. That spirituality instead is a blueprint for us to be able to navigate and participate in life more effectively. It's not it's not for us to run from it. And it is part of our responsibility to resist and fight against injustice in whatever way that we can contribute to it. So awareness will be important, is important. Introspection, important. And constant observation. I would encourage us to take inventory of ourselves, daily, and to be present and mindful of what we're doing and why, and to be able to course correct in the moment. That's not going to happen right away, but when we begin the process, we'll be able to get ourselves to that point. Uh, on with respect to Whitney Webb, Brother Jamal says that he watched a video of Whitney Webb where she is very suspicious of AI, and she said that she doesn't use it at all. I watched that video as my earlier today myself, and I shared her concerns. I may end up having to bring on our brother Siddiqui Bakari, who was a pioneer in that realm, to speak on that and to give his perspective on AI. But what she warned about was people basically losing their souls in their attachment to AI and losing their ability to be able to create, which is something that I was just talking about earlier. We create with our minds. We create with our thoughts. We create with our words. We create with our emotions. And so the point is that if we become so dependent upon AI that we lose the ability to think for ourselves, that we lose the ability to be able to create, we lose who we are. We become drones. And so that's a very real danger. People are creating music using AI. People are creating content using AI. People are writing books. People are using the AI to think for them. So the danger is people can become so dependent upon AI that they lose the ability to think, lose the ability to create. they lose their power. We are spiritual beings. And as spiritual beings, we have the innate power to create our reality. We do not want to give that up and cede it to the computer. You know, about a week or two ago, a spiritual center that I'm associated with did a screening of the movie The Matrix, which is highly relevant to the current day because we're on the precipice of being in a situation where we serve the computer rather than the computer serving us. I've used AI, but I don't use it to create. I use it to organize, but I don't use it to create. I would never use it to write a book. I'll create the words. I may use it in order to organize things for me, but I'm using it. It is not using me. It will never create for me. I'll play my own music. I'll play bass. I'm not making or allowing computer to make music for me. We should never give up our power. But see, again, the Matrix is a metaphor for us being lost in our identification with a false reality. The physical world is a false reality, it's an illusion. The body is a false reality. It is not us. We are just temporarily housed there. That's not who we are. We live on when the body goes. Now, since we live there, it's important for us to take care of it. But it is not us. So it's not for us to serve the body or to give in to its whims and desires. It's for us to grab the reins, to be in control of our minds, to be in control of our bodies, to be in control of what we think, to be in control of our emotions, to be in control of the words we speak. But we can only do so when we are able to maintain awareness of ourselves, when we develop the ability to sit back and step outside of ourselves and to engage in introspection. Why did I do that? Did that serve me? What was the benefit to it? Did I consciously choose that action? Or was I reacting? And if I was reacting, What was compelling that reaction? What happened in my past that made me react to things in the way that I did? Why am I triggered by certain things? What happened to create that in me? What have I become attached to? Why do I repeat certain patterns in my life? What am I thinking and doing and saying that results in these things recurring in my life? What do I need to change if I'm not happy with how things are unfolding? What do I need to change so that doesn't continue to recur for me? Those are the questions that we ask when we are in awareness, when we engage in introspection. And by asking those questions, the answer becomes revealed to us. And then we'll take more time to engage in our spiritual practices. The importance of meditation, the stilling of our mind is necessary because the mind is the barrier between us and divinity. It's the constant mind chatter that acts as a veil between us and our higher selves. It prevents us from being able to hear the inner guidance, the inner voice, because of the constant mind chatter that's going on within us. And so when we become able to master our mind and to bring it into silence, we can surrender and hear, or hear and surrender rather, to the inner guidance, the inner voice. That's why it is that I don't, you don't see me reading from anything. I don't write down what it is that I want to say because it's not about me and what I want to say. It's for me to quiet my mind and allow myself to be the vessel through which spirit brings forth the message that's necessary. And it's only when I allow myself to get caught up in ego where I have difficulty in figuring out what it is I want to talk about because I think it's me. So it's just get out the way. And that's what we all need to do, is to be able to get out of the way such that we can allow spirit to work through us, to guide us, to take us where it is that we need to go, not where we want to go, because we don't really know, because we're identified with our physical self. We're identified with our lower self, our ego self. And if we follow that, that will only lead us to destruction. But if we imbibe the importance of maintaining awareness, the importance of introspection, then we will ultimately be able to live in the present, to not be controlled by by the past, and we will begin the process of transcending our identification with our physical self and to reorient ourselves in the proper way with our identification with our divine self. So, with that, I'll end here and pull back up my logo if I can. And my program is called Journey into Self. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on my website, which is www.sa-ra.org. And you can set up a 15-minute free appointment where I can help you go through what I just talked about. So feel free to reach out to me through my website, or you can reach out to me directly through Facebook. So with that, thank you for joining us here on our Journey into Self. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next time.